Okay, thank you. Uh, Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to start here. Well, I am a little excited to speaking from the screen of my computer. It's a new experience for me. But the idea is I to try to sharing with you a little on my experience working with caimans in the Amazon, especially in the concern, in the management, in the proposal of the harvesting system for the local people. Uh, the the idea here is to try to explain how, from my experience, I can see the relevance of the protected area in the conservation and the improve of the conservation status of the caiman in the Amazon. In general, we can see the protected area like a fence in the changing on the different context of the use of the natural resource. We can see that the protected area is working like a fence. And just now, the view or the expectation of the role of the protected area have changing, especially with the idea to including different aspects, especially the economic, the social, and obviously the scientific importance for the contribution the environment wellness. When we started, when was the first time that was defined the relevance of the protect area, this protect cover around 2 million of kilometer square. Just now, it's told, we are told about is 10,000 more than 60 years ago. The protected area in general have three important priorities. One is the conservation of the biodiversity, is the valorization. The second is the use of the natural resource, like a benefit for everyone that is using this area. And finally, is to try to develop a solution for changes along of the time. The most important of when we discussing or we working with protected area, it's the conservation long term associated with the ecosystem service and cultural values. In general, when we're discussing the role of the protected area in the conservation of the species, we can see that the most relevant or most clear role is associated in the conservation of the vertebrates, because they had an important role in the functionality of the ecosystem and for the local people. When we thinking and we included in this strategy of the conservation, we can see that the vertebrates play a very important role for the culture of for the local person. Obviously, in a scientific or biological view, the vertebrates had a very high information about the status, the biology, and the ecology, and they have a good support for the implementation of the policies and recommendation for the conservation and the implementation of this protected area. But in context, we can see that currently just 30% of the areas, of the protected areas, have a clear conservation purposes. In different of the efficiency of the protected area, currently we can see that, especially in vertebrates, we continue to have with a high extinction rate for this vertebrate. When we talk about the Brazilian protect system, we can see that the Brazil maybe have the most highest structure conservation system for the protect the habitats. Brazil, how you know, is a mega diverse country. This network of the protect area is associated with the necessity to protect the biodiversity and maintain and increase the possibility to use the ecosystem service. The idea is the implementation and regulation of the protect area in Brazil is the integration of the management resource and to try to find a ways, legal ways, where the management and the conservation could be regulated and including the local people in the conservation strategy. The Brazilian protection area is a very complex. We have two big categories. It's the fully protected units, that is areas where is used create to maintain and preserve the natural resources, have different levels associated with the geographic scale. It's possible to form municipal, state, or national park. And the other big category is the sustainable use unit. This category is where we can find the opportunity to really use the natural resource, especially thinking in the inclusion of the local people in this strategy. When we evaluate the area that is covered, this protect area, plus the indigenous territory, we can understand that the Brazilian territory is protected around to 32%, representing the main country of the world with the protected area. In the specific context of the sustainable use, we can work in the context that the main baseline for what is the scientific research is the involvement of the local people, especially in governance process, with the intention, with the objective to regulate and to define strategies for the use of the natural resource, with the main goal they had sustainable development. The goal of the success of this strategy of the conservation is the integration of the scientific and traditional local knowledge, including the participation of the local people in the take decision and the planning of the different strategies. And the final goal of the disintegration of the values is obviously the social development and increase or maintain the biodiversity conservation. But it's possible to think in natural resource conservation like strategic and use, especially when we think in the effort that meaning create and maintain along of the time and a protect area. The simple and most easy answer is yes. We had a wonderful example when we thinking in the Amazon, in the Brazil Amazon, and this process had been replicated in other Amazon countries, and it's the traditional or communitary use of the periodic group. When we're thinking in crocodilians, in caimans in general, we can find around the world different strategies. The most important of these strategies is the use of the caiman in different levels. The farming, that is a simple farm of the crocodiles, or the crocodilians in general, where all the process is in a life cycle closet. The ranching is a semi-intensive scheme, a structure where are collecting the eggs from the wild In special, in this structure, the local people is working like collector of the eggs. And finally is the harvesting, where all the structure, all the process is developing in the wild. This system is important because including the necessity to identify or to know all the biology or or ecological process of the caiman of the animal, the relationship with the natural habitat. But we have different examples around the world, different associated at the context, at the level of the involvement of the stakeholder, but we have very successful strategic. Here in the US, obviously everyone now the alligator system, but in a Latin American context, we have a harvesting strategy in Venezuela that is the most relevant around of the world. Was created in the 18 years. Just now, Argentina is working with a ranching system where the local people is the collector of the eggs and represent a very important economical source and a complementary economical source for the local people. But Amazon is a very different environment. It's very complex and it's really hard thinking and implementing one system of the exploration. And when we think in the success and the implementation and the success of the other exploration system around the world in different contexts and alternatives, we develop or we create a lot of questions. Really, it's possible developing a management system and a harvesting system and approach system of the caiman in the Amazon. What is the best structure? What is the best system? Where? Who can do that? And how? In context, Amazon, it's the most diversity place when we're thinking in caimans. In the Amazon, in general, we can find 4 species, but depending on the context, we can discuss that present until 6 species of the caiman. In Brazilian context, in the Brazilian geographic Amazon, we found 4 species: the black caiman, the spectacled caiman, and the bow species, the dwarf caiman. All these species had an important value in different scale and in different relationships with the environment for the local people. But when we work or we think in a specific context of the black caiman is the largest caiman of the Amazon. They have the relationship between the local people and the caiman is very, very strong. And the use of the local people represent how the local extraction of the caiman could be an important economic alternative for the local people, for the Amazonian. In context, this use was considered for many, many years an illegal activity. We now, or we have the minimal idea how was the magnitude of this extraction, but we can see that in 15 years was exploring almost 7 million of the animals just for the skin international market. But this is the very superficial result associated with the monitoring of the enforcement records. But really, we don't have any idea what was the magnitude of this exploration. When we continue working with the black caiman, the main source or the main product associated with the black caiman was the skin, was exploring until end of the 16th year. But with the high exploration, the was detected a decrease in the wild population, and in the end of the commercial trade of the skin was a kind of the substitution where the spectacle caiman represent an important substitution for the product generated of the exploration of the caimans. After the prohibition of the ban of the international leather or skin, the market of the trade had a very important substitution. For the beginning of the 80 years, the meat was the most important product associated. Just in this case, had a substitution where the animal was killed and the skin was don't represent any resource, any economical advantage, and the meat was the most important product used for international market, especially in this context for the Colombian people, and it just start to have a very local or regional trade, but no with a high significantly. Obviously, in this moment, the most important was obtain the meat, and don't have any real criteria associated, for example, with the species or the sex or the size of the animals. Anyway, we know that in different of this high pressure, the local, the blood caiman in the middle Solimones that continued maintaining the population healthy, and after the implementation of the some conservation strategy, the population recovered very quickly. After this international market for the meat, the Amazon, the middle Solomon River, was transformed, becoming in the center of the caiman hunting. And this place represents for many years the main sources of the illegal meat for the local and regional meat trade. In this context, all these activities was considered an illegal activity, and always depend on the trend of the market, the require of the buyer, and obviously the important effect of the enforcement of the environment local agencies. But it's possible thinking in implementing or developing a legal management. In a legal context, the Brazilian legislation prohibits the harvesting and commercialization of the wild. But when we're thinking in the context, returning in the context of the protected area, it's possible that the implementing and developing this kind of the management strategic following a management plan. The legal supported was defined for the national system or the conservation unit, the UCN in international context, the IBAMA, that is the Environment Federal Agency of Brazil, and obviously have different pressure of the international organization, UCN, CITES, and obviously the commercial context. But why we thinking in the idea to implement a management for the blood caiman? The first is slide expressed for you is the increase of the wild of the natural population in the protected area, and just now we had strong criteria to know that the implementation of the maintaining the indigenous land could be useful to increase and to maintain the wild population. And obviously the expectation from the different or international agencies and the potential option, the potential possibility to bring an additional income for the local people was a fundamental criteria, or fundamental point to thinking in work in this system. But where the main answer was the Mamirawa Sustainable Development Reserve. It's a main important protected area. It's localized in the middle Solimoens in the Amazon state. It's a big area that represents almost 1,300,000 hectares, and is the largest protected area in the world, that including very important Amazonian habitats. But after the implementation of the Mamirawa Reserve, we have an abundance of the black caiman, too small, but with the increase of with the implementation of the Mamirawa Reserve, the implementation, the strategy, the conservation and natural use resource for the local people, immediately it was possible to identify the increasing of the population. And just now, the population is relatively stable, and we can thinking that we have the ecological status, or the ecological point to suggest the implementation and a legal caiman management following minimal criteria. The most important when we're thinking in Mamirawa and in Amazon context, it's all the biological and economical social context is determined for the changing of the level of the water. The reproduction of the caiman is associated with this changing in the habitat, strictly linked with the changing of the water level. And one important thing that was determined in the increase of the population is where are the nests of the black caiman. And we can see, we can find after to a strong work with the local people that the nests are localized inside of the forest, far away of the main rivers, and they are considered inside of the zoning of the protected area sources for the caiman, the black caiman population. In the flooding season, this body war or water body are connecting. I go now thinking in an optimistic view, why we can planning and doing with the idea to using the caiman like a conservation strategy working with the local people. The first time, and it's clear, is the increase of the population with the implementation of the regulation, the protect area. It's important here that after that, after the implementation and during the implementation, the protect area never had applied any conservation strategy directly of the black caiman. The increase of the population is just associated with the implementation, the specific implementation of the protect area, and the involvement of the local people in the use of the other natural resources. In national and international context, the conservation status of the species improved. The idea of the local people had an extra economical alternative. And the idea of the context where the legal and international legal support could bring an opportunity to develop in this system. In simple words, the idea is using to implement the sustainable use the caimans, and what's the first expectation? It's using the technical and scientific knowledge, especially associated with the population ecology and reproduction ecology, using the traditional and local knowledge, especially where are the animals, maybe using a little the experience of the local and traditional people had for the produce the meat or the skin in wild context. And finally is the articulation with the public policies. In the context of the Mamirawa, the idea was using like a mirror, like a parallel for the comparison, the Pirarucu system, using a socioeconomic model that is representative in some places of the Amazon, but when we thinking in Caimans and Pirarucu, we can see that they are totally different structure in the commercial and productivity chains, and they generate some difficulties to maintain working this idea. The first Caiman management experiment happening in Mamirawa in December of 2004. In the beginning, the experiment was developed with 200 individuals, and the idea was developing or testing different protocols for the management or for the process of the Caiman in local conditions. In this moment, the most important idea was the inclusion and the participation of the local communities, the insertion of the potential produce in the local and regional schemes, where they are the final consumer of the meat, like the main product of the harvesting. And finally, this main expectation is using this proposal for implementing and monitoring and reserve system that could bring the answer or the baseline for the maintain a long-term the harvesting system. The idea was using some criteria associated with the knowledge, the local knowledge, and the biological knowledge, was the selection of the hunting areas. The main criteria was using the zoning or the use for the natural resources implemented in the master management plan of the reserve, and obviously associated with the accessibility of the water bodies and the maintaining in touch the next areas. The idea is thinking too in commercial criteria and was defined animals between 2 to 3 meters and to above the hunting and killing the females. For 2008, we tried to replace and other destruction of the animals. We have the goal to harvesting 445 individuals. The idea is, like the main result, we started 257 animals. All the animal was Melanosuchus niger blood caiman, and we can see that there was very efficient system because we choose the best time of the year, especially associated with the water level. But we can see too that the local people had a small over exploration of the animal more associated with the places near or your house. In this same context, we can see that the structure after and before of the extraction don't have a real significant changing. But when we're thinking in the lab of the information, how we need to define the quote, or the extraction quote, we had a little problem because we don't have clear what was the structure of the population. In context, we can see that the effort of the extraction happened in 5 days, sorry. The main or the big animal was captured the first days, and after that they are associated with the time, with the effort and the wariness of the animals. The size of the animal decreases significantly. How expressed for you after the harvest, we can clearly see that we don't have a very difference, no significant difference in the structure the site population. That is clear that the population don't suffer a real effect with the extraction of the animal. After that, we can identify the lab or an effective monitoring system for the caiman population, especially when we think in a long time. It's the ausent or the basic data about the population density, trends, population dynamic, difficult to take the decision. In a older scale, in a regional and local scale, we don't have real information how it's the illegal market, especially what is the time, what is the prices, who is the consumer there, what is the real demand. And this is important because could be necessary for the implementation of the extraction or harvesting regulation. And finally, we don't have a real marketing and business plans for the commercialization of the product. Using this point, after 3-4 extraction, the local government or the federal government can answer the question: what is the main product associated with the harvesting? What is the expectation? And what is the product? What is the price? And what is the real benefits in economical view about the management of the caimans? From the biological and ecological context, we're working in the improved the system, and we can include in some information. Working in a specific area and working with local people, we developed a participatory map where we developed a clear management, a clear zoning for the implementation working with the community people was possible to define and building participatory manifests to define the main goal or the main criteria for the monitoring system, and using this information to create the management plan for the next extraction. And we define an area in this sector where they define the main water body for the nesting could be necessarily protected. The idea where are the places that could be using for extracting the caimans. And finally, using this information, we will then, with clear criteria, what is the structure of the population and how it's possible to define the quota for a potential extraction that happened in the last year. The first point, we defined the commercial interest sites to bring a clear or satisfy the necessity of a potential buyer. It's animal between to 210 218 centimeters. In total, during the sources was identified or was count 2,243 individuals that when we thinking in the same range, they represent 40% of the total of the individuals what we can count. But following the regulation of the legal rules, the quote was stay in no more than the 30% of the sites or the number of the animals inside of the site runs, and 15% of the territorial individuals. In this case, we define that the quote, the situation quote for harvesting caiman is 232 individuals. It's a little confused, but the idea is very preservative strategic to guarantee that we are not striking all the animals and to maintain an conservative priority in this context. Finally, when we're thinking in economic sustainability, is a big problem, a big difficult in the implementation of this system. The idea it's not clear. I repeat for you, it's not clear what is the main product of this system. It's necessary to define what is the potential production chain and marketing strategic. It's necessary to define infrastructure to including the local people. What is the commercial context and in global and regional scale in totally synchrony? And finally, maybe the most important, it's define what is the main product of this harvesting. When we're thinking in how was the structure of the illegal caiman trade along of the time, we can see that we have a skin trade, meat trade. Currently, we had a local meat trade, and currently we had a bait trade using for the piracatinga fishing. But all this trade is associated with require the buyer. But what is the problem? When we saw this context, the local people saw the caiman like an alternative income. It's really difficult to follow in the require that the legislation is asking for the local people, especially when they included the technological production, and thinking that in countries in the Amazonian don't have real access to electricity or quality or water with quality. Thinking in the potentiality of the skin of the leather, Amazon don't have a real technology to process these skins. The market is not clear. And in context, when we're thinking in comparison and made the comparison with other systems, we can see that the Amazon or the black caiman system it's a system with allowed production. And when we have the expectation of the legal caiman trade structure, we're thinking in a simple idea where the local hunter is the local people, the local buyer is just the intermediary. And the idea is that we have the intention of the regional or the Brazilian buyer or an international buyer and finally international consumer. But when we overlap all the other structure, we can form that it's really a complex structure and very difficult to regulate, because the expectation of the local agencies, the government, and some institutions don't are including how is the trade structure of the historical current system that the local people is working, and maybe they know. In using this context, the success of the sustainable use depends obviously the inclusion of the economic sustainability, including and developing and a potential system to guarantee a correct and equitative management and distribution of the economical sources. This is very, very complex when we're thinking how is the conceptual model for the commercialization. The idea here is not discussing in detail that, but when we can see that in international context, it's really simple in comparison with a national context. Are a lot of steps, a lot of stakeholder involvement, and this meaning that we need developing a regulation system to real including and working in the implementation of the cayman harvesting. What is the future? What is in ideal context? We need thinking in constant evaluation of the process, the involvement of the local people, improve the local economy, and this economy could be developing in local scale according to the different necessities and following the sustainable principles. Idea, the most important maybe, is working hard in the coordination, articulation in the main stakeholder of this process, where the local people could be the baseline for the use of this cayman, and in the future maybe could be call this system a local communitarian harvesting system. Our real context is we have information, biological and ecological information, but we need continuing developing this research to increase this information. We continue with a lot of the studies of the real and potential chain of production strategy. We need fund investment to improve the infrastructure. And finally, we need to define what is the best context for implementing or structuring this harvesting system. We need working in improve different, sorry? Okay. Well, this is all. Thank you so much.